And we're joined now by a very special guest, a saint for life in Austin Rueschhoff. And Austin, thanks so much for taking the time today.
No problem.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I know the sports world has kind of come to an abrupt end for everyone, but even after your college season ended, you got some pretty good news right off the bat afterwards. And just less than a week, I think, after your college season ends, you're able to ink an entry-level deal with the New York Rangers. Take us through the 24-hour process of how you felt right after signing it and what it was like leading up to signing that deal as well.
Well, it's definitely a special feeling. You know, it's a dream come true. You dream about it when you're in AAA and even in juniors in college that you want to sign a deal in the NHL. And luckily for me, that dream came true. And to be honest, it was a pretty crazy 24 hours before that. You know, just finding out your season's over and possibly your college career. And it just started with a conference call, pretty much from at home. Everyone's been staying away from everybody, so. And then things kind of started picking up, and I felt like the decision to leave school and early, and kind of had the same decision where I could have stayed one more year in Dubuque, but felt like the right move was to go to college, and kind of the same decision that I had to make, and didn't want to, not take that same chance.
You mentioned the abruptness of your season ending, and I know that's not what really anyone wants to dwell on, but what was going on when you found out the news, and how exactly did you find out the news that everything was going to end in the manner that it did?
Well, I woke up Thursday, ready for practice, had practice. We heard right before that day, so on Wednesday, that the games were still on, but we were going to online classes, and then had a normal practice, got out of practice, and then heard that each player gets like 6 tickets for our home game, and that's all they're letting in. And then not even like an hour later, we were at lunch and found out that the playoffs were canceled.
Yeah, it seems everything in the whole situation just escalated so quickly with the entire sports world and everything. So now that you've had a little bit more time after the culmination of the season, overall, how would you assess this season on a personal level with Western Michigan?
I feel like it was good. I struggled in the beginning a little bit, but then started picking up my game and realizing how I need to play. And I would say I finished off pretty hot, and my line was especially hot during going into the playoffs. So it's kind of frustrating that you're on that streak and it kind of abruptly ends, and it's not because of you losing your last game.
Right, and with the emotions, still a couple weeks out from that ending of the season, emotions still raw. But when you look back at your 3 years at Western, what was that overall experience like for you to be a part of a team like that for 3 seasons?
It was unbelievable. Just the guys that are there from the seniors when I was a freshman. You still talk to them, and I know they come into town every once in a while, and they're like a family. It's everybody knows each other and really well, hangs out with everybody. There's not really any cliques on the team at all. The coaches were super special there too. Overall, the program was unbelievable, and I'm glad that I got to go to Western for 3 years.
Do you have a favorite 1 or 2 memories from your time at Western Michigan?
My freshman year, we actually swept Denver, and they were the number 1 team at the time, just came off winning the national championship. And I think we came back both games down 3 goals and ended up sweeping them at home. And that was super special. And that was kind of my first big moment in college where you kind of connect as a team.
And obviously not just the hockey career now over at Western with you signing that deal with the Rangers, but also just a college life in general. Outside of hockey, what was a part of it that you just enjoyed so much about being a college student and just an individual in the college life, maybe that doesn't have anything to do with hockey?
I think it was special that outside of the rink and all that, you kind of it was a very athletic school, so everyone kind of looked on each other kind of equally. No one was really above anybody, so it's kind of cool to just be able to hang out with people and learn where they're from, and be able to hang out with other people just besides your teammates.
Mm-hmm. So when you commit to Western, if we can go back there, right after your time with Dubuque, you end up going to Western Michigan. After playing that season in the USHL, which player from the USHL that was also part of the NCHC, which for those that don't know is the conference that Western plays in, which player from the USHL that you had played against in your year were you most excited to be able to play against again in the collegiate level?
Man, I would say my old teammate, Bushy. I know he stayed one more year when I was there, but it's always cool to play against your old teammates and see from the other side and your perspective of how they played while they were on Dubuque.
Mm-hmm. And you when you had your first year at Western, you had or excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong thing right now, but your first year at Western when you come from the USHL, I know the jump from midgets and lower levels to juniors is a big jump. What was the transition like from then the junior level to the collegiate level for you?
It wasn't much different. I feel, you still live away from home. I think the only difference is obviously you don't have a billet, so you're kind of living on your own. But I think for the game side of it, definitely a lot faster. You got to think a lot quicker too. Higher skill. You're playing against guys that are 4 or 5 years older than you, maybe even more depending on when you go in. But I think just the game was a lot quicker and a lot faster.
And you spent 1 year in the USHL, and then the year before that, you had a season under your belt in the NAHL. How big do you think it was to have the multiple years of junior experience, albeit not 2 at the USHL level, but 2 years of solid junior hockey under your belt before you went to college?
It was good. I think the development side of junior hockey is huge, and I feel like I went into junior hockey to be there to develop. And each coach I had from the NAHL and especially in the USHL was super special, and those guys helped me a lot to get where I was and where I am now.
Looking back at your year in Dubuque, how would you sum up that season, maybe just from an individual perspective first, but then just overall what your experience was like in the Dubuque hockey community?
God, it was special. That was probably one of my most favorite years of hockey so far. But just from the fans to the teammates to the billets, everybody was connected in that community. And even now, I hear back from fans from Dubuque, and I even hang out with my billets. They've come down to watch me play in Western Michigan a couple times, and it's almost like a family community in Dubuque.
Is there a specific game or a specific moment on home ice that sticks out to you above others when you think back on your time at Dubuque?
Definitely the Cedar Rapids games. Each time we played Cedar Rapids, it was a sold-out barn, and it was unbelievable just hearing the crowd get rowdy and hearing the music and everything just happen. It almost happened like in slow motion.
You mentioned the billet families, and I recently had a conversation with Nate Soucis, and he mentioned the billet families as well. When you were billeting with those parents, I mean, what did it? I know it's obviously everyone is grateful, but how much of it for people that don't know what goes into being a billet? How much of it, from your perspective, just seemed like above and beyond from what they were doing?
It almost seems like they'd taken another child pretty much. They would help me with I took some classes before I went to Western. They would help me with that. They would whatever I needed they would go out and get, and whether I was doing something wrong they would let me know, or if I needed to clean my room a little bit they would make sure that I would let them know. But it was definitely like a family atmosphere. You were part of the family. It wasn't you were just a hockey player living in a house. They made you part of the family.
You mentioned that every Cedar Rapids game was kind of up an octave in terms of the energy in the building at Mesquite Community Ice Center. In terms of anywhere at any time in that year in Dubuque, do you have a top hockey memory, maybe on the ice, and then do you have a top memory off the ice as well?
I would say off the ice was hanging out with. We'd have poker night before every. I don't know if they still do it there now, but
Yeah, they still have that going on, I think.
Really, that's good
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome. It would be at my place the entire year, but they would that off ice moment where everybody would come over whether they played poker or not. It was the whole team came over. It was a team event, and it was super special.
Who, who,
I'd say on the ice,
hmm.
just those practices. I've had some junior practices where they suck and you don't really want to be out there. I feel like every time I went out there, our coaches, our players made it fun. You wanted to be at the rink every day, and it was super special.
Who were your billet parents when you were in Dubuque?
I lived with the Edwards.
Edwards. Okay, so that's still where, to my knowledge, that is still where poker night goes on. So the tradition lives on, not just the action of poker night, but it's still the same venue every single time.
That's great to hear.
The Edwards, I think, are the Dubuque equivalent of the MGM Grand, then, with hosting all that poker action.
That's what it was. You can put my name on there as one of the founders there.
There you go. Well, maybe they should have it like a Austin Rueschhoff Memorial Poker Night or something like that. Come back, be the dealer.
Just make sure you don't let Solo or Tyson in there. Those guys would cheat and somehow find a way to get the money.
There you go. When you're looking back for the again, that year in Dubuque and everything that you worked on in that season and practices that you just mentioned, but also in the games, what was the biggest gain, the biggest positive that you got in terms of building yourself into a hockey player that was able to compete at the collegiate level?
I'd say the defensive side of the game. The very beginning of the year, I remember it was horrible. I was never in the right spot. And Lammers, who was the head coach at the time, was made me do a what was it? It was a you find 3 bad clips, 1 good clip, and a clip you had a question on, and we did it once every week. So every time after every Monday or Tuesday, and I would come in with the video with him, and he would go over it with me, and I felt like that was a big turning point in my defensive game, and that's what I think got me to the NCAA level, and did the same thing when I was in college, and that's might be probably the reason why I have an NHL contract.
And when you speak on that NHL contract, as we're wrapping up here, even though there's no sports going on right now, obviously there's always work going on for anyone that's in the sports world. What are the next couple steps for your game? What do you want to work on to get better, to be ready for the next step in your career?
Definitely the speed side of it. Every time you move up a level, it gets faster and faster. And I definitely know that the NHL is the fastest that it could possibly go, and definitely need to work on that. It's tough right now with no ice available or anything. You kind of just work it out in your basement with the programs that you got, but definitely the speed side of it, the agility, quick feet, just overall speed side of the game.
Well, you mentioned speed. We'll see if you have some of that right now, because we like to end these with a rapid fire question section, if you're in for that.
Cool, I'm in for it. Let's go.
Alrighty, absolutely. So it doesn't just have to be a 1 or 2 word answer. You can give a little bit of explanation if you want to give a backstory and why. But we'll start out with your favorite road trip in the USHL.
Chicago.
And when you're going on those road trips, what was your go-to snack on those bus trips?
Skittles.
Favorite barn to play in the NCHC, obviously outside of Western?
North Dakota.
Your go-to video game right now, if you are a video game player?
Fortnite.
What's a cheat day meal that you enjoy?
I would say pizza.
Alrighty, everyone's shut in right now. So what are you recommending to binge on Netflix right now, and why?
On Netflix, I would say, or even I don't really watch Netflix, but I'm more of a Disney Plus guy right now. And on that, I would say the Clone Wars it's like a Star Wars animated film. I've been watching that. It's kind of in between the second and third movie. It's pretty good.
Alrighty, so Star Wars fans who are tuning in here, maybe Tom Madden, if you're tuning in right now, definitely listen to Austin's recommendation on the Clone Wars. Well, Austin, thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, take care.
Thanks.